Hey guys, how are you? Just thought I'd give you a quick comment on this news article that's come out today. It's called "The Biggest Threat of Growth is Public Policy," and it's interesting. I couldn't agree more. I think one of the big problems that I've always had with politicians in general, and it's not just the UK, but it is across the thing, is they're much more attuned to putting themselves in power and staying in power than they are about necessarily doing the right thing by the country. And I think, whilst Cameron and Clegg are doing a really good job so far, I think, there's a number of areas that they could perform better in. And look, what this talks about, and I'll just sort of go through, it's quite a long article, and I just want to, it raises a number of points. The first one is that when we went into this recession and when we went into, the problems with the credit crisis and all this and the banks being, having liquidity problems, we had a coordinated policy effort, okay? In other words, all the people around the world, all the politicians around the world got together and they effectively averted a crisis, and they did very well at that. But as soon as that initial problem was over, they went back to nationalism and looking down and being very, inwardly reflective, rather than having this coordinated world economy view. And that really is, I think, they've missed a massive opportunity there. So that's the first part of this article. The second part, it talks about inflation. And look, realistically, I think with inflation, my view is that come May next year, we should see interest rates rise. And I don't think they will. I'm not sure they will. I think they should. That's my personal opinion. And I think the reason that we need that is because that way there's a definite, it will sort of almost, we'll get over this VAT and the cold weather and all that sort of stuff. So we'll have a bit of a kick in May when the warm weather comes back. And generally things start to move again, which is great. Also, we'll be through all these, Easter and, that 2 weeks off virtually that is happening over there. So come May, I think, and it only has to be 0.5%. Enough to say to people, hey, interest rates are going to go back up. Get ready for it. Because if we leave them at a traditional low level, all that's going to happen is people are going to get used to that. And when they do rise, they're going to be overcommitted. They're going to be, spending frivolously over the next couple of years that interest rates are going to be low. And that isn't going to work very well for them. We'll then talk about the deficit. Look, Labor's saying that it's irresponsible to cut too early. It's rubbish. We need to cut it, and we need to cut it as soon as we can. Now, what you can do is you can cut very quickly, and if it's too quick and things start to slow down too much, just ease off a little bit. It's much better to do that than to sit here and go, no, we're going to put it over a 5 or 7 year program, because that's just going to do the damage. We've got to, at some point, accept responsibility for, for Labor's problems, because at the end of the day, Blair and Brown, monkeys, friggin' idiots, to be fair. They rode this country into the ground, and there's no, most people know that now. In fact, we knew it before, even when they were in power. The media just didn't express that very well. We've got to pay for that, and unfortunately, how we pay for that is a number of ways. Firstly, we pay for it by paying back the debt. All right, by spending less, okay, and by earning more. Okay, so VAT's gone up, that's earning more. Spending less is, we've all got to tighten our belts a little bit, put money into savings. The government has to spend less, so there's not as much stimulus programs, all those sort of things. But the other side of it is, and this is one of the other side that we can look at too, is inflation. Okay, by actually allowing inflation to get up around the 3-4% mark, what that means, and remember that's CPI inflation. CPI inflation is not RPI. RPI is the good one, all right? Now, effectively, by running inflation for a little bit, that actually effectively not pays back the debt, it decreases the amount of debt. So that's actually a good thing as long as it's controlled. And the reason I think we need that 0.5% increase is because that will check inflation a bit, and it'll make sure we won't get rampant inflation in a year or 2 years' time, okay? Finally, the article goes into China, and it talks about how China, and the US, they could drag us back down into recession. The US certainly isn't looking very good. China is also, really, I think right now, my personal opinion is China controls the world already. They really, at any point, can press the button and really knock the US out, because the US has 13 trillion worth of debt. Okay, now that's enough from what I saw the other day. If you had £100 bills, you could go from here to Saturn, I think it was. If you polled them high, 13 trillion, it's massive, okay? And a lot of that debt is owed to China, okay? So China's in the hot seat, and certainly China long term, is in the hot seat. Now, will China do that? No, I don't think they will, because still most of their production, I think it's about 60 or 70% of their exports go to US. It's the largest consumer economy in the world, and it still is. So the last thing they're going to do is cut that off, because then all of a sudden they've got all the problems at home. Okay, so I don't think that will happen. Look, he completes this article on the world may be growing, but for how much longer? Now my personal opinion is we're coming out of this. We're now right at the bottom. We're bouncing on the bottom. We've been bouncing on the bottom for 3 years now. Okay, and really, as much as you've seen some growth and some all this sort of stuff, really, it's just been nothing. All right, and I think come middle of the next year, we'll start to see some positive changes where double dip will be out. We'll actually be on to nice growth. Certainly by the middle of 2012, I think we'll be back to where there'll be some level of normality. Okay, so anyway, that's my thoughts for the today on this article. Have a great day.